So, Dr. Reeks, just to add some context here, we just came out of India's one of the biggest festivals that we have. We call it Diwali, the the festival of lights.
Hmm.
And I'm sure just after Diwali, this session of yours will light our life with the knowledge of foundational wellness.
There you go. Wonderful. I love that. That's a great tie-in.
I think let's not waste any further time. People, once they join in, I will keep on admitting them. And I've
Perfect.
already started the recording of this conversation, so we can refer back whenever we get time there. And Dr. Riggs does not require any introduction, so I'll not waste time on that. He has been to India a couple of times, if I remember correctly. Some of the
Yes.
best trainings that I've ever attended on uh, from someone coming down from US and giving us that kind of making science easy, and that's Dr. Riggs for you. So let's not wait any further time. Let's dive right in and welcome Dr. Riggs to take us through his presentation tonight. Dr. Riggs, over to you, sir.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Very, very kind words. And I'm grateful to be with you, your evening, our morning here. And I'm grateful to be having this conversation. You know, as we go through this information today, what I hope happens is that number one, if we're having metabolic issues or concerns, that we can find those answers in the conversation that we'll have today. And maybe just as importantly, that as we're talking today, if there are people's names that come to mind for you, that you think, oh my goodness, you know, my friend Julie, she just really could use this, that you'll write that name down. Don't just have it be here, but put it in your notes so that then you remember, oh, I need to reach out to this person and let them know I may have an answer for the problem that they have. Because I think that as we look around the world today, there are lots of people that are having challenges. And sometimes they're health challenges, sometimes they're economic challenges, sometimes they're mental health challenges, but we can be a solution to that. And I always think, you know, often we'll start a meeting at doTERRA when we're having them in our homes of telling them about our own experience and why we came to doTERRA. And it was probably because most of us here tonight, it was probably because we had a challenge in our home. It was with a child, or it was with us, or it was with a spouse. And someone reached out and said, hey, I may have an answer for you. And that worked for us. And so we can be that same solution to someone else as they deal with their own challenges. So let's get started with the presentation here. And today we're going to talk about metabolic health and foundational wellness. I'm very passionate about this concept of foundational wellness. And here's why. I spent some of my years growing up ranching. So we raised cattle, and I spent lots of time on the back of a horse. And part of the job of a rancher is to build, we call them outbuildings, to build structures. Some of them to put your cattle in, sometimes to protect your horses when you're out on the ranch, etc. But when you're building a building, if you start with walls and a roof, that building will last for a little while, but eventually it will come down. It will crumble because it's not built on a solid foundation. It's only built on shaky ground. But when you pour a foundation, when you dig down into the earth, into bedrock, and you put a foundation down, and then you build walls and a roof, now that structure is going to last for a very, very long time, right? And so foundational wellness is very important because we should be building everything else from the foundation. We should be starting with that foundation. So let me see if I can get this to advance here. Oh, my computer's being a little slow this morning. So foundational wellness for us at doTERRA is VMG, PB Restore, E Omega. And then when we're looking for metabolic support, particularly having metabolic issues, then we would reach for the MetaPower line, MetaPower Assist. But that foundation has to be first before we move to MetaPower Assist. If we just use MetaPower Assist by itself, really what we're doing is putting up walls and a roof before we put that foundation down. So we need to be making sure that we're on that solid foundation of the VMG, PB Restore, and E Omega. Now, in addition to that, there are other things we would include in our foundation. So sometimes it's easy to get overwhelmed with all of the things doTERRA has, right? And stuck in the, well, which one should I use and when should I use them? But the truth is, wellness doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be consistent. I would rather have someone be consistent about a few things than try to be perfect with all the things, because perfection rarely happens. And so we've kind of broken this foundational wellness down into supplements and oils. The supplements that we feel that people should have are those that I mentioned earlier. But the oils, these are oils that we feel, 13 oils that belong in every home. As we looked at all of the oils that we have, we decided which are the ones that people could and should be using every single day. Ones that support sleep, digestion, energy, immune health, right? So think of things like lavender. Probably every single one of us reach for lavender at some point during our day, or an oil with lavender in it, like Serenity. Lemon as a citrus oil. Probably every one of us use citrus in our drink every day. I know I do. When I have a drink in front of me, I've either put lemon or grapefruit in that drink, and there's reasons why I do that. Peppermint, frankincense, etc. These are the responses that we reach for every day in our home. And then on top of that, we should have a daily wellness routine, like we've talked about with those foundational wellness supplements, right? And the reason that we do that, there's no point in taking On Guard that supports our immune system without also taking PB Restore, because 70% of our immune system is found in our gut. And so we want to have a healthy microbiome to make sure that we have all that we need to make sure our immune system is doing really well. Now, beyond that, then we deal with a targeted solution, meaning when my body needs extra help. So for instance, if I'm taking my VMG, E Omega, PB Restore every day, and I know that's going to be helpful for sleep, supporting sleep, and I'm using my Serenity oil every night before bed, but I still need a little help, then that's when I reach for a targeted solution like the Serenity Stick or a Serenity Soft Gel, right? We layer on the rest of it on top of that foundation, and then that really does help us to get the maximum benefit. Now, here's how I like to talk about this. We know that essential oils are cellular communicators. They work on cellular pathways. And we know that nutrients fuel cells. So it's kind of like the car and the gas analogy, the key and the gas analogy. So I have 5 children, 3 of which are now adults, and 2 of which are teenagers. Now, the 2 teenagers aren't driving yet, but I've been through 3 teenagers driving in my house. And so if the teenagers borrow the family car on Saturday night, and they are going out with their friends and doing whatever, and then they come home and the car is completely empty of gas, and they put the key on the counter, when I get up in the morning to go to church, for instance, then there's no gas in the car. Am I going anywhere? No, I'm not going anywhere, because there's no nutrients for the car, right? There's no fuel for the car to run. Or, now this is a fictional story, keep in mind, this is pretend. If my teenager thought on the way home, hey, you know what, mom and dad want to use the car in the morning, I should fill up the car with gas using my own money to make sure that they have a full tank of gas tomorrow morning. Then they come home with the full tank of gas, but they go up to their bedroom with the key in their pocket of their pants, and go to sleep. And in the morning, I have a car and it's fully fueled with gas, but I have no key to the car. Am I going anywhere? No, I'm not going anywhere. I need both things. I need the pathway, the key to turn the car on, and I need the fuel to fuel the car. So both things together make the car go. This is exactly what oils do and our supplements do together. The supplements are the fuel, the oil turn on the pathway. And so that's why these foundational oils are really ones that we should be using every single day. Now, I know you guys have Zengest, right? It's not Digest Zen in your market.
No, we have digestion, Dr.
You have
X.
Digest Zen.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. You didn't take the cue from Europe that wanted to change up the name for that one. So yeah, so you have Digest Zen. So Digest Zen is one of the first oils that we use in our home, and it has made a huge difference in our lives. We've been using Digest Zen in our home the last couple of days because we've had some folks in the house that haven't been feeling very well, right? We know that these oils don't just smell good. They're verified, molecularly verified, globally respected, and clinically studied. So that CPTG standard ensures that purity and potency so that the body gets exactly what it needs, okay? Every drop matters because every cell listens to those cellular communicators, right? So we love these top 13 oils and feel that they belong in every home. They're your kind of response team for the challenges that you deal with. So lavender offering its calming sensation, peppermint providing that focused environment, lemon with its cleansing properties, and more and more and more. So when life shows up in your home unexpectedly, as it happens to all of us, you don't have to guess. You just grab the essential oils and you go to work with those amazing products that you have. Now, I'm going to show you the oils and some of the targeted solutions there within the wellness pyramid, but I want to point something out that I don't agree with this slide, okay? So my team made the slide, and usually I have them change it, but you see that VMG E Omega down there on the nutrition and digestion category? I disagree with that. And here's the reason why. I think that I know that VMG, E Omega, PB Restore not only help with nutrition and digestion, but they actually help with movement and metabolism. They help with rest and manage stress. They help with reducing toxicity. They belong in every level of the wellness pyramid because they actually have effect in all of those areas, not just the area that we kind of keep them to with the nutrition and digestion. And later in the presentation, I'll make a point as to, because we're talking about metabolism tonight, why they belong in the metabolism category, not just the nutrition and digestion category. So when we lay our foundation, of course, we start with our VMG. VMG, we know, fills those nutritional gaps. It's your multivitamin on rocket fuel, right? So it gives your body bioavailable nutrients that are delivered with something that we call liposomal technology. Now, what are liposomes? Because it's a big word, and in science, sometimes at doTERRA, we use these huge words, and we're like, oh yeah, liposomes. Everybody knows liposomes. It's a liposome, right? Let me give you the cue about liposomes. Your cell walls, every cell in your body, is made up of fatty acids. It's a layer of oil, right? And the only way that vitamins get in to the cell is by a receptor sitting in that layer of oil. And then let's say it's vitamin C, and it grabs the receptor, okay? And then the receptor takes it inside the cell. Well, what liposomes do is, rather than dealing with the receptor, liposomes are just like that fatty acid wall of the cell. The molecule of vitamin C is surrounded by fatty acids. Think of it as a bubble, right? And that bubble, so now the cell wall only sees the bubble. It never sees the vitamin C. And because that bubble is made up of the same things as the cell wall, it just says, oh, we know you, we recognize you, and it allows that bubble to integrate right into the cell wall. Now, what happens to the vitamin C in the middle of the bubble? It gets admitted right into the cell. So when we say it's more bioavailable, what we're saying is it gets to sneak in because we surround it by the same thing the cell is made of. And so that's really, really important that we're using that liposomal technology. We're also using 5 essential oils: lemongrass, lavender, ginger, peppermint, and wild orange, because they each have data in helping to allow vitamins and minerals to be better absorbed by the cell. And then we also use probiotics for that as well. So the probiotics help us absorb those nutrients even better. Now, E-omega. E-omega is very important because those essential fatty acids, those omega-3 fatty acids from wild-caught fish and wild orange, are great for the heart, brain, and joint health. They actually help your cell walls remain more fluid, okay? So it's important to remember that every cell in your body can incorporate omega-3s into the cell membrane, that layer of fats that we just talked about. And then that membrane becomes more fluid. So here's how I like to think about it. I'm now in my mid-50s, okay? And with that comes wisdom and a little bit of stiffness in areas of the body. I didn't want that, right? Nothing I experienced in my 20s. But what's happening is as we age, we're having less and less omega-3s and omega-6s incorporated into our cell walls. And so those cells become more stiff, less fluid. So then when I go walking, running, etc., they're not able to handle the force very well of that. When I have omega-3s in my system, now my cells are much more fluid and I experience less problems with that stiffness as I go about my day, okay? And then there's PB Restore. PB Restore is like kind of reseeding your lawn in the wintertime. It's putting the good things down so that your microbiome can be healthy. Now, here's an interesting fact about the microbiome. So we talk about the microbiome also, like, oh yeah, it's microbiome. Everybody knows what that is. But let's review for a minute. The microbiome is a collection of bacteria, viruses, and fungi that live in or on the human body, okay? So bacteria, viruses, and fungi that live in or on the human body. The human body is made up of about 35 trillion cells that we can identify as human. Okay? If we were to take a cell out of the body, we can identify it based on the DNA. This is a human cell. Your microbiome consists of about 100 trillion cells. You are, in fact, more bacteria, virus, and fungi than you are human. I know that's a little weird to think about, but it's true. And so we need to make sure that if we are just simply a planet, a host for all of these bacteria, viruses, and fungi, then I want a nice, healthy population and not an unhealthy population living on me and in me. And so therefore, PB Restore is so very helpful at making sure that I'm giving my system good probiotics, prebiotics, and postbiotics to make sure that my microbiome is nice and healthy. So it becomes very important for us to take that PB Restore every day. So let's move on to that liposomal technology, the essential oils, and then also the probiotics that help us absorb more of the nutrients, more bioavailable nutrients. So you can see here that vitamin C, 4.1 times more bioavailable than without those things. Iron, 6.3 times more bioavailable. You're getting 6.3 times more absorption into the cell with this than without it. And then, of course, 5.4 times more absorption of vitamin E. So the reason we chose those three as your examples is vitamin C is a water-soluble vitamin. Iron is a mineral. Vitamin E is a fat-soluble or lipid-soluble vitamin. So showing you three different types that you get from your VMG and how much more absorption you get with this amazing product. So VMG is a staple for me. It's actually a great value when you consider all the things you're getting in VMG. We could have, and there's been some people that have suggested, why does doTERRA do this? Why would you not sell individual supplements? A calcium supplement, a vitamin D supplement, a vitamin C supplement, etc. You could make a whole lot more money doing that. But remember that doTERRA is about helping the world heal. So therefore, we put them all into one package to be able to help most people, the more people get better. And so I love that we've said, forget that strategy to just make more money off of people. What we want to do is make sure that people are healthy and well. And so therefore, we've put all of this into one package, and I love VMG for that. So this becomes really our everyday foundational supplements. Now, we've recently done a clinical trial on our foundational wellness supplements. And here's what we found, that over a 3-month period, people were sharper, meaning their cognitive performance improved, their brain performance improved. They were stronger. We had more muscle mass in those that were taking our foundational wellness supplements. And their body fat decreased, and they were more vibrant, meaning mobility increased. Remember, I told you about those cells, right? And if they're stiff, they don't work very well. And if they're fluid, they work better. We've just proven that with this study, right? They had more energy. Their vitamin levels, of course, went up, and metabolism improved. And that's what we'll be talking about later in this conversation today. So we've just done a clinical study on this. This is the results of that clinical study. You'll see more about this in the coming year. We just barely finished this, like just barely right before our convention here in the US. And so we are working on getting this information out, but I thought it would be a great opportunity for us to share on this call today those things that we've just recently discovered. So, of course, we know with our E-omegas that has been combined with essential oils, our wild orange oil, that you get a decrease in diastolic blood pressure by 6 points, and you get a decrease in resting heart rate of 4 beats per minute. Now, a lot of people are like, 4 beats per minute, that doesn't seem like a lot. Well, let me tell you, first of all, resting heart rate is one of the ways that we determine cardiovascular health. So I have marathon runners whose resting heart rate is 42 because their heart doesn't have to beat very often because it's so efficient at doing its job. Normal, for most of us, it's between 60 and 90. So a decrease of 4 beats per minute is pretty significant and indicates better cardiovascular health. But when you think about what that is, that's 2 million beats a year less. 2 million beats per year when you just have that less than 4 beats per minute. So that's pretty impactful. Little changes make a huge impact and millions of heartbeats saved. That's really an important point of our omegas. And then, of course, we talk about this with our PB Restore. We've talked a lot about our microbiome and how important that is. We've got prebiotics in there. Those prebiotics feed the good bacteria. We have probiotics in there to replenish the good bacteria. And then we have postbiotics in there. What are those postbiotics? What are they? They are things like serotonin, that feel-good neurotransmitter. They are things like GABA, which helps us feel calm, relaxed, even-keeled. And so those postbiotics, you get a dose of those with your PB Restore every time. And it's very helpful for us to not only establish a good microbiome that will make those things for us, but we get a dose of them every time as well. So we know that it strengthens the gut lining, which prevents cellular stress, promotes a healthy inflammatory response. And then also we know that the probiotics, as we mentioned before, helps our body absorb those nutrients better, like the vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, etc. So a healthy gut protects your cells. That's kind of the most important thing. So let's move on to metabolism. We want to talk about a targeted solution tonight, but I want to make this tie into why those foundational supplements are so helpful for our metabolism as well. It doesn't just belong in nutrition and digestion. So when you think about this, our B vitamins there help us metabolize carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. And a deficiency in our B vitamins actually slows our metabolism. So again, that's why a foundation of these things is so important. Rather than just trying to build a wall, let's get the foundation. Let's look at vitamin C. Vitamin C actually helps with the biosynthesis of carnitine. And what is carnitine? It's involved in transporting fatty acids into the mitochondria. What does the mitochondria do for us? It's the powerhouse of the cell. It burns through calories and creates energy for us. So we have to have vitamin C if we want to speed up our metabolism and create more energy. So we need to start with those foundational supplements. Vitamin D. Vitamin D regulates insulin and glucose metabolism. It influences body weight and body composition, our muscle mass versus our fat composition. Vitamin D helps us regulate that and regulates how well we handle carbohydrates. Iron. Iron helps with oxygen transport, right? So we know that it's helpful at delivering oxygen to the cells where it turns oxygen into energy production. It's also crucial for that formation of hemoglobin. And hemoglobin is that carrier of the oxygen. Magnesium, involved in energy production and glucose metabolism. And chromium, it is helps us with our response to insulin. We're more sensitive to the insulin our body makes when we have enough chromium. And then, of course, biotin. I mean, and the list goes on and on. A deficiency in biotin causes really significant problems with our metabolism. And that's witnessed by weakness, hair loss, depression, lethargy, etc. And then iodine. Iodine also is helpful for us, and iodine helps us make thyroid hormones, which control our metabolic rate. So you can see foundational wellness is important even with metabolism. Now, in addition to that, you might reach for your MetaPower oil, right? MetaPower oil consists of grapefruit, lemon, peppermint, ginger, and cinnamon. And so what does that do for us? Well, grapefruit helps us regulate lipid metabolism, fat metabolism. Now, there's a word in here I love to say. I'll just be honest with you, just because it sounds fun. It's nootkatone. Isn't that a fun word? Nootkatone. Nootkatone, found in grapefruit oil, inhibits lipid accumulation in our fat cells. So we all have the same number of fat cells. If you're an adult, all of us have the same number of fat cells. The only difference in an overweight adult and a skinny adult is how fluffy the fat cells are. Now, I don't know about you, but I prefer skinny fat cells. I would like those to just be as tiny as possible. And so what nootkatone does is it makes sure that our fat cells stay nice and skinny, and they don't accumulate more fluffiness over time. So that's very helpful for us. And then we also know that grapefruit is a great antioxidant. It helps get rid of some of those challenges that cause stress in the system, and that stress in the system impacts our metabolic health. Grapefruit also is incredibly helpful at helping us have a healthy inflammatory response. Now, ginger, let's talk about lemon for a minute. Lemon essential oil contains limonene, a couple of other things, which are powerful antioxidants. What they do is scavenge free radicals, those things that go around the system causing problems. They reduce oxidative stress. Now, what do the free radicals and oxidative stress do? They contribute to things like metabolic syndrome and obesity, right? And so what we found is with lemon oil, you actually get, and those particular compounds of lemon oil, the limonene and beta-pinene, that lemon oil helps us decrease our risk for metabolic challenges. And so love lemon oil for that reason. And that's why it's in our MetaPower oil. And then, of course, you can go into our peppermint within there. Peppermint decreases caloric intake, which I think is great. As you diffuse it, taste it, or put in your MetaPower blend, it helps kind of curb those cravings for carbohydrates that we know contribute to metabolic issues. And then ginger. I love ginger because of its thermogenic effects, meaning ginger helps us increase our temperature and helps us burn through calories faster, and it helps us with fat metabolism. meaning burning through fat faster. So love ginger for that effect as well. And then lastly on this list, right, is our cinnamon bark, which is helpful for improving glucose uptake because it increases the activity of insulin receptors. And when you have more activity of those receptors, the insulin, it gets into the cell better, and therefore glucose gets into the cell better. So very helpful to have the cinnamon bark in there. So then let's talk about MetaPower Assist, our metabolic assist product. What is it doing for us? It's an incredible product that I really love because, again, it's one that we've studied. Now, what's interesting at doTERRA is I sit on the research committee and we look at lots of scientific literature. Okay, I have a huge stack of articles right here that I go through all the time. And we read this and we go, okay, how do we formulate a product that does these things? And so then we formulate a product and then we do science on it, we do research on it. And for some reason, we always get so excited when it actually shows that it does what it says it does. I don't know why we're like surprised every time, but we are. It's so exciting to see the results of a study when we do it. And so we did that with our MetaPower Assist. Now, how does this work? MetaPower Assist actually, when we consume carbohydrates particularly, but other things as well, our glucose rises. As our blood sugar rises, the pancreas produces insulin, and when insulin gets into the system, the glucose lowers. So we understand that concept? I eat carbohydrates, my body turns it into sugar. Sugar goes up, insulin goes up, sugar goes down. That's what's happening. Now, what we know is that's a normal response, but the rise and fall of that glucose causes us issues. Our system does not like to be on a roller coaster all the time, right? So those of us that have been on a roller coaster in an amusement park, the first time, pretty fun. The second time, still fun. The fifth time, not as fun. And the 100th time, we probably are done, right? And when we think about our body, when we're putting our body on that roller coaster of sugar, up and down, up and down, up and down, the system does not respond well to that either. And so when we did our study with MetaPower Assist, what we found was that MetaPower Assist significantly decreases that up and down roller coaster of the glucose. Okay, so a 13% decrease. So you can see in that top graph, you see that red line that goes pretty drastically up and down, right? And the average blood sugar over that was 102 points. What we found with MetaPower Assist is that our average blood sugar was 89 points. Okay, so 13% lower. But notice that you have a much smoother day of your glucose when you're taking your MetaPower Assist. It takes out those spikes and drops so that your body is not on the roller coaster all the time. That's so very, very important to recognize that that's where the health benefit comes from this. Now, how does this do this? It does it with a couple of things, with mulberry leaf extract and with berberine. Those two things have been shown in trial after trial to help average out those blood glucose levels and not cause problems. So you get less variability of it over time. Now, what do those results mean for you, right? I recognize that we talk a lot about some of the science here, so let's recap this. We've now seen well-designed human clinical trials that MetaPower Assist keeps blood glucose levels in a healthy range after eating. It works by significantly flattening those spikes and dips that sometimes occur after eating carbohydrates, particularly simple carbohydrates, and by smoothing glucose levels throughout the day. Essentially, those fast carbohydrates become more like slow carbohydrates. We actually slow down their metabolism so they're not turned into sugar quite as quickly as they are without that. Okay, so now I will tell you this. I have a friend of mine, a dear friend of mine that is at doTERRA. She's a wellness advocate. She called me up last year. She had been recently diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And she said, Dr. Riggs, what I've realized is you can't out-supplement a bad diet. And that is true. We have to, as we're talking about MetaPower Assist, we should also be talking about what are the lifestyle things we should be doing to help us with better glucose control. So what do those things look like? Number one, we should be decreasing the amount of carbohydrates we consume every day. We know that particularly simple carbs, meaning white rice, white flour, those things cause a rise in our glucose that's much too rapid for us. Number two, we should be eating more protein and more healthy fats, right? Number three, we should be moving more. I always like to tell this story. In the US, we don't have, I don't know how it is in India, and you can tell me how it is, but in the US, we don't have a culture of getting out and moving every day. It's just not in our culture. So when I was in my fourth year of medical school, I went to Germany, and we had rented a house or a portion of a house from a lady who was in her mid-80s. And she had made us a wonderful German meal the first night we were there. And she said, Dr. Riggs, after dinner, I'd like to go for a walk. And I was like, okay, I mean, you're in your 80s. We can walk to the stop sign, I guess, at the end of the street. I can make sure you don't fall over, I guess, right? Well, when dinner was over, I said, okay, where should we go on our walk? She said, I'd like to go to my brother's house. I was like, oh, great. Where's that? Like, I'm thinking maybe it's the next street over or someplace close. It was the next town. It was 4 miles away. And she did this 3 or 4 times a week. And when she wasn't doing it, her brother was walking to her house, and he was slightly older than she was. And what was interesting to me is everyone in the community was out walking. After dinner, the standard is everybody goes out and walks in the evening. We need to be moving more. So if we want to maintain healthy metabolism, we need to eat better, fewer carbs, more protein and fats. We need to make sure that we're moving more and that we're drinking plenty of water. And then we need to make sure we're taking our foundational wellness supplements, right? Our VMG, E Omega, PB Restore, and then our targeted solution of MetaPower Assist. So I hope that helps with understanding what this product is. It really is a fantastic product. So thank you for your time, and I appreciate the invitation. I look forward to being back in the market again sometime as soon as we can work that out. And I'll
Absolutely,
look
sir.
forward to doing this again sometime. So
Thank,
send me an invite.
thank you.
Love to do it.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you so much for your time today. I know everyone has been benefited with the wonderful way that you have kind of broken down science into more meaningful and easy understanding. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Dr. Riggs, and thank you everyone for joining in. Have a great night. And sir, you have a great day ahead.
Thank you so much. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.